The media buries the stories.
We don't know what we're talking about.
The media ignores the leads.
I don't know what that means.
The media preserves their contacts and their cocktail parties. We don't. This is the Michelangelo Signorile Show.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to the Michelangelo Signorile Show here on SiriusXM Progress. So we started the show talking about listening to Joe Biden's speech on voting, which is incredibly important. That's not the only big kind of legislative story this week. We should be, maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, getting the budget reconciliation package from the Senate Budget Committee. And we could see some movement on BIF, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Framework. And guess what? I don't think any of you are going to be surprised to know that Mitch McConnell and Republicans are doing everything they can to thwart both. So helping us unpack that right now is someone who pays more attention to the Senate than most of us ever will, and who understands Mitch McConnell probably better than even a lot of Democratic senators. Welcome back to the show, Joan McCarter from Daily Kos.
Hi, Joe. What a depressing introduction.
Depressing, but oddly accurate, Joan. It's kind of scary.
I've devoted my life to understanding Mitch McConnell. Lord help me.
Well, it's very important information. It's very important intelligence. And, you know, I mean, like, what's maddening is none of what we're seeing play out is surprising. None of it. And let's start with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Framework. Just give everyone a quick refresher on what it is, and then tell us what's happening here with Republican senators.
The Bipartisan Infrastructure Framework, or BIF, which is my least favorite acronym possibly ever, is the outgrowth of the failed negotiations between President Biden and Shelley Moore Capito, the Republican from West Virginia, who spent a lot of time and wasted a lot of time meeting with Biden over and over and over again as they tried to reach a deal. That didn't happen. So in swept this bipartisan group featuring moderates from both parties, well, moderates from the Democratic Party, regular Republicans from the Republican side, because we know there aren't really moderates there.
Right.
But there were supposedly 11 Republicans and 10 Democrats who were going to figure this whole thing out. As of this morning, there are about 6 of those Republicans who are saying, yeah, maybe not. Surprise, surprise. This is more effort on the part of Republicans, led by Mitch McConnell, of just trying to drag this whole process out until it dies, of preventing Joe Biden from getting this hugely significant bill passed.
Very important.
At least that's my perspective. I would love to be proven wrong, but this is just so predictable. So predictable, particularly when you've got Lindsey Graham being one of the 11 Republican senators supposedly working on this bipartisan plan.
That's the thing that's so maddening. Anyone who's watched this for years, Republican Senate caucus, there's one leader and they are all loyal soldiers and they all play their roles. I mean, you and I have discussed this on the show. We've discussed it on Twitter. We've discussed it just chatting. Susan Collins is classic example. Media treats her like a moderate. She's no moderate. She's a stalking horse. She goes out, talks about, she's part of this group of moderates, quote unquote moderates. They're not moderates. As you said, they're just regular Republicans. And they always manage to get to know. And the media treats it like it's complete. So many Capitol Hill reporters just treat it like it's completely legitimate that they act in bad faith and that, they're always looking for excuses. And I find that particularly maddening. The thing about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Framework, or BIF, which again, I agree with you, how absurd. The thing about that is, for that to pass in the Senate, it would need 60 votes. So, and it sounds like Schumer is playing along and saying, okay, you guys say you have 60 votes. Let's put the legislation on the floor and let us see what happens. And that's about 580 billion, give or take. So that's, I guess, it's going to be a test. Can Republicans negotiate in good faith? My answer is no, they never were negotiating in good faith, but we're going to see this play out in the next couple of weeks.
If it actually gets into legislative text,
Right.
which it hasn't yet, and, you're seeing a lot of pushback as of today that now that Schumer's really pushing this hard, especially the reconciliation side of the package, the part that's going to contain all of the stuff that didn't get into BIF, that has been a priority for Biden and that can pass with just Democratic votes. Now that Schumer is for real going for that, you're seeing Republicans saying, wait, nope, no way we can have that this week. That's way too soon. Right. No way we can get it to the floor. And no, we can't do this without assurances from Nancy Pelosi that she's not going to hold the reconciliation vote before she holds this vote. It's moving goalposts as usual. Hopefully Schumer just does ignore it and moves on as fast as he can on the reconciliation bill. He can't let this slow that up.
Joan, I keep thinking, what would Mitch McConnell do? Mitch McConnell would be laughing his ass off in his office if he controlled the Senate this way, thinking Democrats think they can slow me down by talking with these lame-ass excuses. Unfortunately, some of those lame-ass excuses, and Mitch McConnell, they're very strategic. I'll give Republicans that they're strategic. They know how to thwart the Democratic agenda, which is their stated goal. Let's never forget. McConnell has said his stated goal is to thwart Biden's agenda, basically undermine his presidency. They don't even hide it. They never hide what they do.
No, he's perfectly honest about it every time.
Right. And then everyone always seems surprised, like, oh, my God. But I will say, I thought our good friend Greg Sargent, who writes at the Plum Line, wrote a great piece today. We both commented on it on Twitter. His headline was, How Republicans Hope to Scam Democrats into Committing Political Suicide. And he had this one line that just so encapsulates to me how D.C. operates, the media infrastructure at least. If Republicans are outraged about something, we're all expected to treat it as deeply authentic and momentous. Yeah, exactly. And it's such bullshit.
Yep. And that takes us back to another thing that just came up for me anyway, watching Biden on his speech on the Voting Rights Act, the filibuster. Because, if Democrats decide to overturn the filibuster, and if nothing else, then for Voting Rights Act is going to be the most horrible thing that ever happened to American democracy. and it will be reported as such.
Yes.
Political reporters will happily quote Mitch McConnell every time he says this. In the meantime, I'm super cranky about all of this right now, as here in Boise we are hitting day 15 of degrees, 100-degree or above weather in my city. Oh, this is record-breaking. We are also covered in wildfire smoke from fires all over the West. There are more than 50 fires burning, major fires now burning in the West. We are burning up, and something like 800 people have died from heat-related causes in the Pacific Northwest because of the heat wave we had here. We're burning up. And what we're seeing in D.C. is games. What we're seeing from the D.C. press corps is reporting on those games. The West is burning up. The East is drowning. Cities are subsiding. We're on fire. Everybody's hair should be on fire about this.
Right.
So I'm particularly cranky right now because this is kind of more important than who's sitting at which lunch table in the Capitol.
Right. And whether or not such a thing as bipartisanship exists, because that's not reality. And one of the things that's maddening too is, we have those 51 Texas House Democrats in the Capitol at the White House, begging them, telling them, look what's happening in our state. You're up here talking about bipartisanship. Look what's happening around the state. Look what's happening around the country with Republicans. Look across the aisle at the Republicans here and see what they want to do. It's so maddening. Joan, we're expecting the reconciliation package to release. There's some negotiations going on right now. Hearing some chatter that there's a couple of moderate senators, like I think Bloomberg was reporting that Mark Warner and Tim Kaine were trying to lower the package amount. Like, Jesus Christ, Mark Warner, you're a multi-millionaire. Do what's right for the American people. Get your ego out of it. He drives me crazy. Okay, I just had to rant about him for a second. But,
he doesn't get enough ranting. Good for you.
No. And look, and actually, let's take a second here. If you live, everyone should be calling their senators and saying, end the filibuster so we can pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and also pass the reconciliation package intact. Go big, pass it. It matters. Solve problems. But let's talk about what we're hearing. Like it's going to have major components of the American Families Act and the American Jobs Act.
Right.
It could be upwards of $4 trillion.
Depending on what happens with this BIF, it could also include a lot of hard infrastructure. They're going to have to fold a lot of stuff in from that.
Right. And
if that all falls apart. So, that's where the $6 trillion that Bernie Sanders has been talking about as his upper limit could actually come into play, because once you have to add all the hard infrastructure stuff back in, you're looking at a huge bill. But some of the stuff that they're talking about is very exciting, including potentially, at least the White House hasn't ruled this out, some form of a path to citizenship for Dreamers and TSPP folks, immigrants.
Right. I actually listened to a press call shortly before this with Senator Alex Padilla from California, and he said that as far as he's concerned, it's going to be included, and there's precedent for including immigration in a reconciliation package. So that's exciting. There's a lot of resources for climate issues. You just described the crisis we're in. Climate change isn't coming. Climate change is here. The question is,
it's here.
Can we address it? Will our leaders do it? There's Medicare expansion. And the thing is,
the child care stuff, the 2 years of free community college, family medical leave, there's a lot in it. That's very good. Oh, and the child tax credit expansion.
Which is so important. And that starts this Thursday. People are going to start getting their checks, their deposits this week, the child tax credit. Going to change child poverty in America. So important. And the key thing is, and I mentioned that if they were to proceed with the bipartisan infrastructure bill, that needs 60 votes. There's some effort to try and put provisions of the For the People Act in. That's going to be harder. That bill is going to address that. We just need to fix the filibuster. There's an effort underway. Representative Clyburn and Representative Neguse have both said, let's do a carve out for civil rights legislation, voting rights legislation. And that's one of the issues that the Texas House Democrats are pushing. But the reconciliation package, we need 51 votes. And so much can be included in it. It's what Republicans did for the Bush tax cuts. It's what they did for the Trump tax cuts. And then we forget. Now, I keep seeing, well, we have to see what the parliamentarian says. Again, just remind everyone, in 2001, when the parliamentarian ruled against Republicans on one of the Bush tax cuts, you know what they did? They got a new parliamentarian. That's how you use power.
Right. You fired the parliamentarian. And let's also not lose sight of the fact that it's because of the filibuster that we're having to go through all of these ridiculous pretzel-like machinations to try to figure out how to get stuff into a reconciliation bill.
Yep. It's here we go. I mean, these next few weeks, and this is what I think is really important. I think our listeners do, because so many of them are so plugged in, but these next few weeks are going to be incredibly important for the future of our democracy when it comes to voting, but also for the future of the Democratic Party, to see if Democrats can deliver. And I've seen so many polling and I've heard so many conversations that what voters really want are solutions. Voters will say, yes, we like bipartisanship. Yes, we'd like that. That's an ideal. But you know what people really want? They want solutions. They want Democrats to get shit done. And that is what we're going to find out over the next few weeks, Joan. Okay, before I let you go, I know you're cranky, super cranky right now, as am I. And Biden's speech today didn't help me, by the way.
No, it didn't.
Give a sense of what should we be watching for this week and over the next couple weeks?
I am absolutely convinced we are going to see Republicans continue to try to play this out, string this along. What I'm going to be watching for is Schumer moving ahead without them. I'm going to be watching for Pelosi to reaffirm that, we're going to have to see both packages before we take a vote. I would love to see Biden say, all right, this is it. If we can't get this bipartisan package, then we've got to move ahead. This is too important. We've already lost too much time. That's what I would hope to see. I don't necessarily think we will.
Right.
I'd love to see these packages come to the floor next week. I'm not holding my breath. But I do expect that they'll have to stick around later in August if we don't see that. So maybe that threat will work.
And if there's one thing we know, senators hate missing their vacation. They really hate missing their vacation. So, again, everyone should be calling 202-224-3121. Call your senators. We can't call them enough. They have to hear. The right wingers are going to be, ringing the phones off the hook. We have to do it as well. Joan McCarter, always a pleasure to talk to you. Even when you're cranky, it's a joy to hear your voice. On Twitter at Joan McCarter, always at Daily Kos. An incredibly important voice and someone we should really watch over the next few weeks as we try to figure out how this is playing out. Thank you so much, Joan. Stay safe out there.
Thank you, Joe.
And warm and cool.
All right.
Stay cool.
Yeah.
Bye. Bye-bye. This is Joe Sudbay here on SiriusXM Progress. This is the Michelangelo Signorile Show. Let's take a quick break and back in just a few.
The Michelangelo Signorile Show.